Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good whatever time it is, wherever you are, whoever you are, welcome once again to Nerd Week Live, the show in which we, the folks at Nerd Caliber, look at some interesting topics in nerd news that have happened over the past week since our last show last Tuesday. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, first-person shooter, Facebook and Instagram as a cosplay photographer, Burley_adopter on Twitter for now. We'll see how that plays out. It is, of course, we start the show off at 8 o'clock on every Tuesday. It is 8 o'clock on November 8th here in the United States. Most of the polls have closed here on the East Coast. They closed just now here in Massachusetts. They closed at 7 on some of the other states on the East Coast. They're still open in many states for an hour, for 2 hours, maybe even 3 hours if you get all the way over to the West Coast. If you live in the United States and you have not already exercised your right to vote, I did it by mail-in ballot, which Massachusetts introduced a lot of that with the COVID pandemic and didn't roll it back. I'm all set. But if you haven't, and the polls are still open wherever you are, please do go vote. Luminous, welcome to the show on YouTube there, and Luminous voted. Thank you, Luminous, for being on the show and exercising your civic duty. Before we get into tonight's topics, one other thing that is also promotional but isn't going to result in a image change here for you. Byron D. Zero has finished, and I've just posted his review of Black Panther Wakanda Forever. It's on the website, nerdcaliber.com. I will, of course, be teasing it out on social media tomorrow in the appropriate times, but please, if you want to read it, it is spoiler-free. Go to www.nerdcaliber.com and check it out. I'll give a bit of a spoiler for the review. He pretty much kind of liked it. Shouldn't be a big surprise. I'm very disappointed that I wasn't able to get to it myself, but in capable hands with Byron's review. Anyway, so check that out. While you're checking things out, do please, if you get a chance, check out our streaming on Twitch. We are streaming right now on Twitch, on Facebook Live, and on YouTube. So Facebook Live, we've got a pretty deep audience on Facebook. We've got a very good audience on YouTube. Trying to build our audience on Twitch, so if you have a Twitch account, go to that URL that's on your screen right now, twitch.tv/nerdcaliber. Check us out, and if you feel like it, please do follow us and subscribe. All right, that said, now let's get into the meat of this particular week. This dropped just yesterday. That is, of course, a screenshot from a Gears of War game. I think that's Gears 3. But I couldn't swear to it. And the news is that Netflix has announced it is going to be making a bunch of content based on the Gears of War intellectual property. Working with the Coalition, which is the Xbox game studio that's based in Vancouver that controls all of this intellectual property, Netflix has announced that first up is going to be a live-action movie. That will be followed by an adult animated series. That's their term for it. And then, let's see, quote, the potential for more stories to follow. This makes 4 video game adaptations that Netflix currently has in development. They have announced the live-action BioShock movie. We talked about that. They have announced a live-action Horizon Zero Dawn series. We talked about that. Umbrella Academy showrunner is running that, and it will feature as the lead character Aloy. And they are working on a live-action Assassin's Creed series, which we've also mentioned. So, no idea when we will ever get to see... I'm assuming the movie will be the first thing... Well, one, they say it's the first thing they want to do. But also, it's a lot easier to make. You're only writing 2 hours worth of content. You're filming fewer scenes than you would for an entire series, so on. Even if it's an animated series. Remember, in current video game adaptations, well, they have a bunch of them, but the two biggest ones, Cyberpunk Edge Runners took 3 years to come to the screen. Trigger started working on it, about a year before the game itself was released. Arcane, based on League of Legends, took 6 years to make it to the screen. So I don't think we're going to see this before 2015. 2015. That would be great. Go back in time. 2025 at the very earliest. I just don't see how they could possibly pull it off. They literally just announced it. They have no idea. We have no idea. They may have an idea. Who's writing it? Who's going to be directing the movie? Who's starring in it? Everybody out there has been saying this for a long time, and of course that this announcement just brought this back up to the surface. But everybody wants Dwayne Johnson to play Marcus Phoenix, assuming Marcus Phoenix is going to be the main character. I'm going to go no. I mean, sure, he's built, if you look at, let's go back to there are not an awful lot of steroid monsters like this that you can choose from to be in this kind of a movie in the Hollywood pool. Dave Bautista. All love to Dwayne Johnson, but Dave Bautista has shown in his roles and choices that he is a better actor currently than Dwayne Johnson. And, right now, nobody needs Marcus Phoenix to emote deeply. But why not have it in there if it's a possibility? Not saying that Dwayne Johnson can't. He hasn't a lot. And certainly his choices over the last, say, 10 years have been indicative of the fact that he has no desire to be that kind of a character or, bring that kind of emotional depth to any character. So I'm going to go with Bautista. I also think he just sort of more naturally looks like it. And then you can throw in every other steroid guy that you can think of around, and not saying that all of these gentlemen use steroids. Who knows? This could all be natural. My son is a national level competitive power lifter. They all use steroids. So, yeah. I'm not saying my son does. But he certainly does use supplements that might help his bulking up. And I guarantee that a lot of these people did in the past. Well, anyway. Before I get myself into any more trouble with anybody, let me just say that I think this is a great idea. I would like to see it. Again, I'm 100% on the Bautista camp as far as who should play Marcus Phoenix, or anybody who is the lead, because frankly, all of them are jacked to the nines in the game. They don't have to be, in the series, or in the movie. This is going to be a movie. But again, if you're going to do, a video game adaptation, a live action, get people who look like walls. And there you go. So we have no idea when this is going to happen. It's also Netflix, and they don't give out a lot of in-progress information. It's just not a thing that they're really big on. Now, whatever they've spent to get this franchise, they probably need to recoup some of their money, a lot of their money, and I'm sure they would like to build a sense of excitement for it before, say, the quarter before it's actually going to be released. Let's say it comes out in, fall of 2025. Now, ideally, they'd be making announcements about directors and casting over the course of the next couple of years. But we'll have to see. I think it's really cool. I wasn't a huge player of the franchise. I liked it. But for the longest time, it being console exclusive, just, I don't play consoles. So the only times I would ever do it was when I happened to be, playing, the game on one of my son's consoles when I was visiting my son. So So I've got no real skin in the game, except that it's very exciting, and it's obviously a pretty deep franchise. It does have backstory. It does have, family conflict and drama and so on. So that can all be part of an actual movie that isn't just an excuse to have action set piece to action set piece. But we'll see. And we'll see if it even makes it. Who knows? With Netflix's stock doing what it's been doing lately, if it doesn't recover properly, who knows? This may not actually make it off the ground. Fingers crossed that it does, though. All right, moving on to our next topic. This is, for me, out of order. There we go. That is, of course, Norman Reedus as Daryl Dixon from The Walking Dead. The news is that the Daryl Dixon focused spin-off, which is called The Walking Dead: Daryl Dixon, creatively, has named two actors for who will be joining Norman Reedus in the series. British actor Adam Nagaitis, who was in Chernobyl, and French actress, I'm going to butcher the name, I apologize for any of my French-speaking friends or followers out there, Clemence Percy, who this article in Deadline wonderfully describes her as currently starring in The Essex Serpent, which is true, but also was in, very recently, Tenet, in the hilarious black comedy In Bruges, and, this little franchise called Harry Potter, in which she played Fleur Delacour. I mean, wouldn't you think that's what you lead with as far as identifying who this actor is? So it's like Fleur Delacour joins France-based spin-off The Walking Dead: Daryl Dixon. The story finds Daryl somehow getting across the Atlantic into France, and basically exploring where zombie insanity has taken over the land of cigarettes and baguettes. I've been mixed on all of the spin-offs. I liked Fear the Walking Dead for the first few seasons, but I didn't follow it. I haven't watched The Walking Dead in 4 seasons at this point, maybe 5. And I didn't watch the basically Children of the Survivors series, and I can't even remember what the name of it was. So yeah, I'm not. This I might watch. I mean, moving it to France. Pardon me. It's really cold after 3 days in the 70s. It's really cold here on the coast of Massachusetts. So, coffee for everybody. And gonna get colder. So I might watch this because I just love the idea of, in the beginning of the, original series, The Walking Dead, there's an awful lot of, scenes of just Atlanta completely empty. And then, downtown just trashed with zombies. I'd like to see Paris. And they will be getting to Paris, according to this. And how they treat that and what that looks like. Is that enough to keep me glued to a zombie series at this point? I don't know. Norman Reedus might be. He's amazing. He's a wonderful actor, very compelling actor, but we'll have to see. It should have in here when this happens, but it doesn't in this article. Here we go. Set to premiere next year. It doesn't say when. So The Walking Dead wraps up its final season, its 11th season, in just a few days on the 20th. And then we've only got to wait basically until sometime next year to see this newest spinoff. I'll give it a try. Yeah, we'll have to see where it goes. I like the idea of moving the story to France and what the possibilities are there. If it opens things up a lot to really new and innovative and interesting ideas, then yeah, I'm all for it. I think one of the problems with the Walking Dead is that when it went back to being hewing very close to the comic book series, was at a point in the comic book series where things started getting not as interesting as it had been, and that unfortunately just got carried over into the series. Um, yeah, they became too, I think, dedicated to the sort of storylines that had to be told, or they thought had to be told, and not coming up with all sorts of new and innovative stuff on their own. Kicking the story over to France could open that wide up. And that might bring me back to the franchise. So, good luck to them. All right, moving on to our next story. This is the amazing Aubrey Plaza, and the news is that the amazing Aubrey Plaza has been cast to join the Marvel Studios Disney Plus series Agatha Coven of Chaos. According to this Deadline article, we don't know what character specifically Plaza is going to be playing, but their people are saying that is going to be a villain opposite Catherine Hahn, who is going to be playing, of course, Agatha Harkness, as she did in WandaVision. This is a spin-off of WandaVision. It features Catherine Hahn. It features Emma Caulfield Ford coming back as Dottie. So that indicates that it will be set in the town that Wanda kind of destroyed, took over anyway. Whether it's sort of a prequel or a, post WandaVision story, I don't know. I'm guessing it's probably going to be post WandaVision. Jack Schaefer, who created WandaVision and wrote most of it, is the showrunner and writer for Agatha Coven of Chaos. I've already seen online quite a few people speculating, or at least wishing, that Aubrey Plaza's character, since it is implied, or their sources say it's a villain, is going to be, or she's going to be reprising her character from the series Legion, which this is an image from in one of the later seasons. And that character is kind of hard to pin down because it is at one point a therapist at the mental institution that David Haller, the main character, is in. Then it turns out to be actually a image inside David's head, or a personality inside David's head that is Lenny, one of his former best friends, who he believes led him down the path of drug addiction. And then it turns out that Lenny is actually just a creation or a manifestation of the being that actually does live in David's head, the mutant Amal Farouk, who is the Shadow King. I think this is Aubrey Plaza in the form of Lenny, but as the Shadow King because of the really terrible context that are in that shot. But I can't remember. That's such a convoluted series. It's really tough to keep track of everything that is going on in there, because an awful lot of it takes place in the head of a person who believes they are completely insane. And written and filmed and executed that way beautifully. But a lot of people want, if Aubrey Plaza is going to be playing a villain, to make that villain Amal Farouk, the Shadow King. I think that's a fascinating idea. I would not mind it at all. I would rather it be a character that ties in more directly to the magical supernatural realm that Marvel is starting to explore more. Obviously with Werewolf by Night, with the appearance of the Black Knight in the Eternals, and at the end, of course, it's not a spoiler for the Eternals, it's been out long enough, the voiceover by Blade at the very end. And of course, the making of Blade, knock desktop wood, assuming it happens, what with the loss of its director. But so I think it would be great for it to be either of those things. I don't see how the Shadow King would fit into this if they are making this as a sort of a supernatural, or tying into the supernatural part of the Marvel Universe at this point. Because the Shadow King is a mutant. In Legion, he is absolutely identified as a mutant. And it's a big spoiler for the end of the series, but the series has been out for a while, or the last season of the series. But they make it canon that David Haller is, like he is in the comics, Charles Xavier's son. So, yes, they've already said that mutants exist with the Ms. Marvel series. They've sort of dropped that that's a thing in She-Hulk. I haven't seen Black Panther Wakanda Forever, so I'm not really sure to what extent they're talking about Namor's mutant background from the comics, but that could be a very important part. So that wouldn't be the first time that a mutant has played a role in a Marvel product, but that's a pretty big mutant and very, very powerful. So I'm not necessarily sure that going the Shadow King route would be the right thing to do with Aubrey Plaza in this particular case. Again, I wouldn't mind it, particularly if they did it well and did it, a very interesting take on it. But I'd rather see them do something new and different. And again, something that hews more into the mystical, supernatural aspect of what they're doing with some of the Marvel properties these days. So, speaking of casting, that is, of course, Trinity and Neo. The story here is about Trinity, or Carrie-Anne Moss. And the news is that the upcoming Star Wars series on Disney Plus, The Acolyte, has cast a bunch of people. So we've got Rebecca Henderson from Inventing Anna, Charlie Barnett from Russian Doll, Dean Charles Chapman from 1917, and Daphne Keane, who was Laura in Logan and is currently Lyra in His Dark Materials on HBO Max, and Carrie-Anne Moss, Trinity from The Matrix, and a whole bunch of other things she's really good in. But, of course, that's what she's most known for. We don't know what characters they're going to be playing. The story is described as... Give me a sec. Pardon me. The story is described as a mystery thriller that sees a former Padawan reuniting with her Jedi Master. So her Jedi Master, that might be Daphne Keene's role. Still pretty young to play a former Padawan, but we'll have to see. We do know already that Amanda Stenberg has been cast from The Hate You Give. And one of my lights just went out. That battery does not hold a long charge for something that's set at 29% value. So Amanda Stenberg, and we also know, because we talked about this a few weeks ago, that Lee Jung-jae from Squid Game, the lead from Squid Game, has also been cast, as well as Jodie Turner-Smith, a few other people. So I think it will be very interesting to see what characters they play. I would really hope that they have Carrie-Anne Moss as a important character, as opposed to Disney has made some announcements for some of their Star Wars content where they went, we've cast this person and they are in 2 episodes, if that. Okay, I get that. That's, you're putting out the name there to draw interest. if you've got Carrie-Anne Moss, have Carrie-Anne Moss be an important part of the series, and Daphne Keane. So, really hoping that this does turn out to be something really fun and exciting. With that cast, it does sound great. The fact that this is set during the final days of the High Republic era, that is sort of a mystery thriller. I really like that idea. Creator and showrunner and executive producer is Leslie Headland, who did Russian Doll. So definitely the potential of an absolutely mind-bending mystery thriller. And please let Headland bring everything from Russian Doll to this particular series. I really want to see this to be as singular a vision of the creator and the writer and the showrunner as Tony Gilroy is currently doing with Andor. And that's successful and doing it that well. I mean, realistically, I guess you could say that Robert Rodriguez did the same thing with Book of Boba Fett. That didn't work. Andor is working beautifully, and it's Gilroy's product 100%, no question whatsoever. Let's let Headland do the same with The Acolyte. So, new cast for The Acolyte. Looking forward to it. We don't have a time when this is going to actually drop. It might have been in the D23. If anybody remembers that, let me know. But I don't know when we're going to get to see The Acolyte. I'm guessing 2023 at the earliest. Because I also don't know how far they are in the writing of it. They've obviously deep into the casting. Actually, I think this image that they show here in Deadline is of Stenberg and Jung-jae talking with Headland as a director on the set of The Acolyte. Now, they are in regular clothes, so this is obviously like a walkthrough or maybe even a read-through. They look like they have just little notes. They don't have scripts. So, who knows where this is in the process, but at least they have actors on an existing set. So, fingers crossed this is a 2023 thing. Our next topic is all about this man. This is Lin-Manuel Miranda. And this actually does tie slightly back into the last topic, as this is a shot of Lin-Manuel Miranda as Lee Scoresby from the HBO Max series His Dark Materials, which Daphne Keane is starring in, which we mentioned just the last topic. This topic is about Miranda joining the cast of the upcoming Disney Plus series, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, as the god Hermes. We've talked about this before. The casting of this is really solid so far. It is being done in very close cooperation with Rick Riordan, who wrote the books, and has publicly said that he wants this to be kind of a correction from the previous two movies. So we already have Grover has been cast as Aryan Samadri. Annabeth has been cast Leah Sava Jeffries. But my favorite casting is that Percy Jackson himself has been cast Walker Scobell from the Adam Project. That kid was amazing, and I'm really looking forward to what he does here. Deadline, his name is Walker, not Walter. This is the second time in articles about Percy Jackson where you have called that young actor Walter Scobell. I know nobody from Deadline is watching this, but in case you happen to, it's Walker Scobell, which could be really easily found out. When I saw you did it twice, I actually went back and looked at IMDb just to make sure I wasn't doing it wrong. So, come on, fix that, guys. Anyway, he is playing, Hermes the trickster god. they don't really say much about here except stuff that I guess is really from the book. Luke is his son, and he's hesitant to help Percy and his friends on their quest, as sometimes getting involved is more trouble than it's worth. So there you go. I think Lin-Manuel Miranda is obviously a fantastic everything. Actor, singer, rapper, songwriter, producer, writer, you name it. He is a multi-talent, and I look forward to him doing something that is primarily an acting role. Frankly, I haven't watched the current version of his Dark Materials because the last one, The Golden Compass, the movie, kind of really turned me off. So I haven't seen his performance as Scoresby. A lot of people are liking this, his Dark Materials, and of course, one would assume that means they like his performance. But I'm really looking forward to seeing everything about this Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. I liked the movies, but the more I read about how really off they were from the books, starting right out of the gate with aging up the characters, then, it'd be nice to see them make those corrections. So looking forward to that. This is going to happen in 2024. This is one we do know. It is currently being filmed in Vancouver. For D23, they put out a teaser that we talked about back when that happened in September. And it looked really good. It was mostly just a voiceover of Walker Scobell and then him walking. You don't actually pull back and see all of them. It's mostly just his legs walking along a pond at Camp Half-Blood. But it looked really good. And of course, all that's being filmed, like they said, up there in Vancouver. So 2024, looking forward to it. All right, something else I'm looking forward to, and on to our very last topic. This is, of course, from the Netflix series adaptation of The Sandman. And I'm sure everybody has seen or heard already that Netflix finally gave the green light to a Sandman second season. What was holding them back? Well, we don't know. Again, pardon me. Burping quite a bit here. Let me get another gulp of coffee to try to put that down. So, it was a big hit by all of Netflix's own metrics. It was a big hit right out of the gate and then grew, for weeks after that. It was fantastic, wonderful adaptation. I absolutely loved it. There was hardly a off note in the whole thing. Now, my guess is, and Neil Gaiman has not said anything about this. Neil Gaiman has been absolutely a gentleman in trying to reply as politely as he can every time anybody on Twitter or anywhere else said, second season, what? It's just, hopefully we'll have something to tell you. But according to this article, the probable reason was money. This was an expensive series. Costing, the rumors were, cost $100 million. Netflix has had some trouble. Netflix's trouble started right after the release of The Sandman. There's no correlation there. But, its stock valuation dropped. It had to do some serious cuts. It dropped some plans. And if I were to guess, I would say that Gaiman basically said, no, we're not going to do a second season unless we've got the budget of the first season at least, if not more. Again, I don't know that. And a lot of people might think that, well, Neil Gaiman is, this sort of fantasy writer who wrote Coraline and, and things like that. And so Neil Gaiman might not be the kind of person you want putting the screws to Netflix. Well, first off, I'm assuming his agents did, if that was the case. But second, if you ever get a chance to go to YouTube or even just Google and read some articles, but go to YouTube and watch some of the videos about how Neil Gaiman negotiated with Todd McFarlane over the character Angela from Spawn. That guy's a hard ass. Gaiman is a tough negotiator. So I don't, if it was about money, I have no problem in believing that Gaiman and again, probably Gaiman's agents and whatever representatives he had, basically just sat on their hands and said, hey, it's second week, 127.5 million watches for the Sandman. So, yeah, give us that money. And whether they came to some sort of compromise that Gaiman was, finally accepting of, or Netflix just finally just went, yep, all right, go ahead, here's your money, do it. And whether or not that's even the story there, who knows? It just, there's no intellectual property to argue over. Gaiman has already made that deal. Netflix is making adaptations of The Sandman, which, because it was a Vertigo property, he has the rights to. It's not a DC thing. He has the rights to the characters and the stories because he wrote them. He created the characters. So, I don't think that had anything to do with it. It might have been some of the people. I mean, maybe Sturridge, who played Morpheus, might have wanted a little bit of a bigger payday. That's certainly a possibility, and that could be in the mix as well if the delay was about money. But really, I can't see any other reason why there would be a delay. There's nothing else in there unless somebody didn't want to do it again. And I've not seen any indication of that. And again, if it was somebody who didn't want to do it, it would probably have to be Sturridge, because I would hate to say it, but you really could replace almost anybody else. It would be really tough to replace Mason Alexander Park or Gwendolyn Christie. But you could. I mean, it could be done. It'd be really tough to replace Sturridge. He captured the Sandman perfectly. But we don't know why. And we don't really need to know why. We're going to get it. We're going to get a second season. We don't know when we're going to get a second season. Hopefully, Gaiman's been adapting what he knows he wants into the second season from his own work already. And that he's got, at least half the season scripts, well baked. But who knows? Because they still have to pick, get the scripts, pick directors, get any new casting. Delirium is apparently going to appear in this next season, and we have no idea who's going to be cast for that. There are plenty of possibilities. It's a world of possibilities out there. We don't specifically know who the villain is of this next season, but a lot of speculation based on the next arcs in the Sandman story, whom, or what the villains might be. But again, we don't know for sure. So we're getting it, folks. We're finally getting a Sandman 2. If you have Sandman second season, not the Sandman 2, that would be like a movie. If you have not seen the first season, whether you're a fan of the graphic novels or not, I've only read a few of the individual comics. I've not read any of the full collected graphic novels. and I really liked what I read, but I've said this to a lot. I'm kind of an art, I know, not art snob, because that art is really good. It's just not the style I really care for. And so I let that keep me away from reading what are really excellent stories. And this is a way for me to get those stories without having to, in my mind, kind of slog through art I'm not particularly happy with. So I'd love it. I really like these adaptations, even though I don't know the work that they're adapted from really, really well. And so if you have seen, or if you have read the comics, you're going to love this adaptation. Unless you're one of those people who really thinks that, a black actor playing Death, as opposed to, somebody with complete white face and a little, tear tattoo, is a bad thing, well, then there's no hope for you. There are bridges you can jump off and enjoy that flight. But if you haven't read all the comics, like I haven't, and just know the source material from sort of around, I'm sure you'll love it too. So that's my recommendation. Now that it's been announced, go watch Netflix's series, The Sandman. You'll love it. And that's it. That's our show. Thank you, everybody, for joining us in the chat. Luminous, thank you for reminding people to vote. Again, polls are still open in the western half of the country. Here in the United States, if you have not voted, please do exercise that civic duty. I don't think it's a challenge to figure out, if you've been watching this show for any amount of time, where I think your vote should land, but you should vote. I mean, that's the important thing. That's what this country's governmental process is based on. Picking the people who represent what you think and feel about important issues and putting them in a position to do something about it. Go do that, please. While I'm asking you to do things, I am also going to ask you to check out our Patreon page, and that is there up on your screen right now at patreon.com/nerdcaliber. If you're of a mind to, love to have you go check it out. If you want to be a patron, we'd certainly love to have you there. 3 tiers, $2 for the lowest tier. It helps us get more content for the website, for YouTube, going to cons, things like that. We will have people at Anime NYC upcoming, and then I think that's it until the first of the year. Probably people at Arisia, probably people at Katsucon. Let's see what else is coming up real early. But while you are going to any of those cons, please do stay safe. Continue to wear a mask. It's just the right thing when you're in a big crowd. And stay safe as the weather gets colder. And enjoy the upcoming late fall season if you're that kind of person. Got plenty of friends who really hate the hot weather in summer, and this is their sweet time. Lee and others, I hope you're enjoying this. We will see you at an upcoming show. We will see you at an upcoming con. In the meantime, stay safe and good night.